May it be the World Wars, the Vietnam War, or even the Cold War between the US and Soviet Union. In the previous century, the world has seen quite a few conflicts. We all learned about Cold War in our textbooks and in documentaries. We also know the proxy wars, arms races, space races, and how we can forget the cool spy movies of that time. The Cold War was one of the major events that happened after World War II. We saw how the world was divided into two groups and started competing with each other. Now, after the rise of China and the fall of the USSR, the foundation of the new Cold War has already been put in place. And in today's video, we are going to see why this new Cold War is different. And why China might have leverage over the US in this Cold War. During the Cold War with the USSR, the US had some major advantages. The first and main one was their massive and very diverse economy. You see, after World War II, the US economy has grown significantly and gained a lot of importance in the world. Moreover, the subsequent dollarization helped them to become an economic powerhouse. Along with this, their allies also grew significantly after World War II, and that's why most of the industrial power was aligned with the US. On the other hand, USSR was struggling to maintain its industry because of corruption and low productivity. Also, their partner states were very poor compared to Western countries. This significant advantage gave the US upper hand, not only in the defense sector but also gave them a chance to invest highly in science, technology, and education, which further helped them to grow. Where the US was promoting its capitalist growth model based on democratic values, such as free speech, greater openness, and transparency, the USSR was doing exactly the opposite, which damaged its image on the world stage as an economically inefficient state. And at the end, in 1991, the USSR dissolved and the Cold War ended. But there was another country that was slowly and steadily growing during this time. China saw the downfall of the USSR, and how the communist-style economic structure cannot work. As they also have suffered economic crunches because of it. At the same time, China also saw how its neighbors such as Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Malaysia actually joined the capitalist road with the West, and it turned out great for them. The political leadership knew that if they wanted to be a superpower, they needed to capitalize on Western economies. So China adopted economic reforms in the late 70s and 80s and opened its economy. After that, many foreign companies came to China to take advantage of its cheap labor, and eventually soon it seemed like everything had the label of Made in China. More and more American businesses choose to manufacture their products in China at a low cost. China became the world's factory and the second biggest economy. So far, this system of capitalism in a socialist country has been successful. Since China began to open up and reform its economy in 1978, their GDP growth has averaged almost 10% a year, and more than 850 million people have been lifted out of poverty. From 1979 to 2008 was China's first phase to grow massively in economic terms. Until 2008, China has focused only on itself. They never undermined US interests and never challenged the US superiority in the world, whether it was America's Middle East wars like in Afghanistan and Iraq, or the war on terror overall. But after 2008, China certainly went into the expansionist mode by claiming all of the South China Sea. China has come into dispute with the neighbor countries and with the US. Also, China started shifting its economic strategy from an export-based economy to more consumption and self-sufficient based economy. This is necessary for China to avoid Western sanctions, and importantly to avoid the middle income trap. We can already see its impact on their economy, as China is in the phase of market stabilization. It can be seen by slowing GDP growth from 14% in 2007 to 6.6% in 2018. And the IMF estimates that this growth will fall down to 5.5% by 2024. With this speed, China could put the US behind in terms of nominal GDP in the coming decade. China is already ahead of the US in purchasing power parity index, and it will not be a big thing if their nominal GDP crawled ahead. Another worrying thing for the US is China's rising trade surplus. We all know the US is dependent on China for manufacturing goods, which was not the case with USSR. This shows that today's Cold War is completely different from the previous one. Today's world is so interconnected that it will be impossible to completely decouple China from the global economy. That's why, from the economic perspective, China's trade surplus with the US is not going to come down easily. And this is one of the major challenges the US is facing in this new Cold War. But it doesn't mean China is winning this time. You see, Even with this advantage, China is suffering with its own internal problems. The most recent one is the real estate crisis in China. Sales in the housing market are going down continuously and the real estate companies are on the verge of bankruptcy. Along with this, the forced COVID lockdowns are also affecting the economic growth of the country. But we think one of the major challenges in China is its declining population. As you know, China is still a manufacturing hub, which means low labor cost is a must for companies. But due to the shrinking population, this cost is rising, which is making it harder for many companies to operate in China. If you look properly, China's population started to decline before it reached a certain wealth. And this might have negative impact on the economic growth. Because when the young population in a country declines, it creates labor shortages, which have a detrimental impact on the economy. Also, more old people means demands for healthcare and pensions can soar, burdening the country's social spending system, when fewer people are working and contributing to it. Now, apart from the economy, China is still inferior to the US in terms of military. Since the fall of the USSR in 1991, the US has had a lead in this area. After USSR, no other country had the capability to challenge the US military. With more than 800 military bases all around the world, the US still holds superiority in the defense sector. But that lead is rapidly diminishing in recent times. As China's economy is growing, the Chinese military strength is also growing. A couple of decades ago, even the comparison of US-China militaries looked very foolish. But not so much now. China is ramping up its military capabilities very fast. There are already some assumptions that China has surpassed the US in terms of number of naval ships, air defenses, and missiles. Now, even though China is building its military at record speed, there is still a noticeable lag. Not just in the number of military hardware but in technology also. The US military still holds the top rank. China's aggressive action in the South China Sea is bringing many of their neighbors to the US. And it seems like the US is taking advantage of this by making a lot of new alliances in the region. Take the example of the Quad Group, a union of 4 nations: Japan, India, Australia, and the US. All of them face security challenges from China. These are the same tactics the US had played against the USSR. By making new allies, the overall US position gets stronger. Last time it was called NATO, and now it could be the Quad Group. So, in the end, we can say that, like the USSR in the past, China now faces several geopolitical and cultural challenges before it can reach global superpower status. And even if China overtakes the US economically and militarily, it could take more time for the world to adopt China's ideological, political, and cultural superiority. Also, we cannot deny America's dependence on China. This might give China an upper edge in this new Cold War. Now, what are your opinions on this video? Please tell us in the comments. And if you are new to this channel, please consider subscribing. Thank you.